Chat and Chai with moi, your host, Karishma Bazday. This is a space where we aim to empower and inspire women through other women's stories. So if that sounds like your vibe, then girl, you found your tribe. Grab your cup of chai, get comfy, and get ready to be inspired. My guest today is someone who has inspired me so much. She has such an incredible story, full of challenges and wonderful, miraculous ways of overcoming them. And she is truly, truly this beautiful, bright, shining light in this world. And I'm so excited to sit down with her today and enter in an incredibly inspiring conversation over a cup of chai. So without further ado, I welcome Susana Kennedy. Susana.
Yes, my lovely Karish.
I'm so happy that you are here. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
I'm so happy to be here. I've been waiting for this to happen.
Yay! So it was interesting when I was preparing for this conversation to read your bio because we've known each other for a while, but we don't know each other. So I'm so excited for this conversation because I know bits and pieces of you that are so wonderful and so amazing and are so inspirational and have been so inspirational to me throughout the years that I've known you. But there were so many things that popped up in that bio, and I was like, oh my goodness.
I know. It's like I've lived a couple of lives.
You have, Susanna. You have lived multiple lives, and I think that's just what makes you this divine, juicy, delicious human being that you are today. And I love that you embrace it all. I love that you just own it, and it's in your bio, and it's like, this is who I am, because it is what has made you the person that you are today.
100%.
And it's so often that we want to hide the challenging parts of our lives, and we want to focus on, oh, that's in the past and this is now. And yeah, sure, that's in the past, but I'm so glad that you brought the lessons with you, into this life. And I know you. I think I know you well enough to say this, that you have alchemized all of that into the gold that you now shine into the world. So I want to start at the beginning because the people listening don't know what I've read and what I know. Tell me about the life-changing experience.
Well, I love that you used the word turned it to gold and alchemized, because I actually created a course based on my journey.
Yes, and I want to talk so much about that. I really do. I want to delve into it. So exactly, that's why I brought it in there.
And I called it Kinstakuroy me. And I think that this is actually a great place to start, because the art of kinstakuroy, which some people do know what it is, but a lot of people don't know what it is. It's taking broken objects and gilding them back together with gold. Right. And in the Western world, when something is broken, whether it be an object or a relationship or anything, we kind of just chuck it away. It's like we get rid of it, it's lost its value, it's lost its meaning, it's lost its purpose, we just need to chuck it away, right? But the reality is that all of us have been broken in different ways. And so what the Western world is teaching us is that means that we do not have any value anymore. When we have been broken in certain ways, when we have been fractured by the experiences in life. What I truly believe is that if we have the courage and the patience and the compassion to take those experiences and put ourselves back together, that we will be so much more valuable than we were before we were broken. And so I love the name Kinstakuroy me, but also just the art form of gilding ourselves back together with gold, of gilding ourselves back together with compassion, with love, with courage, because we are far more valuable after that process than if we had never been broken before. Because so many people, there's that saying that, you need to be cracked open to let the light in.
Exactly.
I don't believe that. I believe we need to be cracked open to let the light out.
Yeah.
I believe we are the light and we're waiting, like our
Exactly.
soul is waiting to shine, right? But we need to be cracked open in order to allow this divine light that exists in every single one of us to come out. But obviously we're not brought up knowing this.
Exactly.
And so every time something happens that we think is inadequate, that we think devalues us in certain ways, we respond by creating these masks. Right? And we put on these masks and my one, can I swear? Am I allowed to swear?
Yes, of course. This is a
okay, great. All right.
free-for-all
No,
space.
because you know me, like I swear like a sailor to anybody who's watching. I'm sorry if that offends you, but yeah. Anyway, so before that life-changing, because I've had a number of, like we all have, life-changing moments or incidents or, those crossroads that we come to. But this one specifically, I was known as Little Miss Fucking Sunshine.
Right. Yep.
And I ran around with these masks on that everything was amazing and everything was fine. And Karish, let's be honest, like being in the industry, how many people run around at events, go from one event to the next in these designer clothes, right? With millionaires and all the cool cats pretending that their life is this amazing life with no struggle, with nothing wrong, and it's amazing. Meanwhile, they don't know how they're going to pay their rent.
Yep.
They are stressing about when the next job is going to come because
relationships are falling apart.
They're only as valuable as the work that they're currently doing because they haven't found value within themselves.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm talking about the entertainment industry, but this goes in all different industries. I'm now a transformational coach and my clients are from all over the world and do all different things. And where do they derive meaning? From their work. From being able to show up as something in the world and deliver something, right? Not by being
something,
right? And we've all done it. But the problem is, or the solution, but we think it's the problem, is the universe wants you to heal.
Yeah.
The universe wants you to be your brightest, most magnificent self. And so I liken it to having like a splinter in your toe, right? And the splinter in your toe is the wound in your heart, in your mind, in your body, in your spirit, because that's why they call it disease.
Yes.
Right?
It's dis-ease.
Dis-ease that you are experiencing mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, when we are not connected to our most authentic truth and living in that truth. It causes dis-ease, right? And then it expresses itself in different ways. But what do? We cover it up quickly. Oh no, you can't see that I'm not this perfect human. So I'm going to put like a mask on and just hide myself from the world, And so it's like having a splinter in your toe. You get a splinter in your toe and you put these plasters on because you're not going to deal with that splinter. But the universe wants you to heal. And so as you walk around your house, your toe will bump into every couch, into every door, into every wall, until you actually sit down and deal with the splinter in your toe. And if you don't, it'll become septic and you will have to, it'll stop you in your tracks.
Exactly. It'll force you to deal with it.
And I feel like that's what happened actually with COVID.
Yeah.
I feel like the universe went, hello, what the fuck are you humans doing?
Exactly. Wake up,
like,
world.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what is actually important to you? What are you believing is true? Who is guiding you in this world? Wake up. Like, wake up. That happened to me 8-9 years ago, right? It was like, wake up, Susana. Hello.
Yeah.
What is guiding you? Because you're not being guided by your truth.
Wow.
You're being guided by what you believe you need to be for everybody around you, right? And that was debilitating. And I was producing a film at the time, and it was LA, Dubai, Australia, and South Africa. Wow. And as a producer, you have to be awake for all of this time. So there was only 2 hours a day that all of the countries were asleep and that my phone would stop actually ringing. And so I was very sleep deprived, and so it put me in a slightly more vulnerable state, of course. And then the universe generously sent me a producer that just pushed all of my wounds, like all of the buttons that were triggers in me. This guy just went ka-ding, ka-ding, ka-ding. And I was so angry that literally I was fevering. You know the saying, your blood boils? I was fevering. I was getting fevers because I was so angry with this guy. And I ended up, which I'd never done before, finishing what I needed to do to prep everyone and leaving the production. So if a producer does their job correctly, because I was not in charge of the post, I was in charge of producing the film, getting everyone on set, making sure the film was filmed, and then the post was happening in Dubai. If you do everything you're supposed to do as a producer, by the time you get on set, everybody's running smoothly.
Exactly.
Like, do you know what I mean? It's basically done. There's a few coordinations that need to happen, but it's not about the producer being hands-on
Day to day
anymore, right? So I did that, and I left the production. That's how angry I was. But it triggered something. It triggered a healing in me that was definitely long in the making, and I hadn't addressed it. And I even went for body talk, which I know you know about body talk, energy healing.
Yes.
And the practitioner said to me, he said, I cannot even work on you. He said, I've never dealt with such anger before. He said, when I tap into your energy, I just see like this bull made out of fire. Like it's the most angry, raging bull I've ever seen, and it will not let me anywhere near it. Like that's how angry I was.
Wow.
And I could feel it, but I didn't know what to do with it. Like I was trying all these things. And then I got a pain in my wrist, and it started creeping up my body, and it ended up all over my body. And within a couple of weeks, I couldn't walk. I was battling to think. I had such intense brain fog. I couldn't like get basic tasks accomplished. And I was in so much pain, I became my worst nightmare, which was a failure, right? How many people are petrified of failing, right? It's the biggest thing. Meanwhile, we need it.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to fail in order to move forward. But at the time, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
At the time, I would avoid failure
At all costs.
at all costs, which meant I was avoiding success as well, right? But I didn't realize that at the time. I was just trying to be perfect.
Yeah. Good old trying to be perfect.
Be perfect, Susana.
Aww.
Anyway.
It's like the biggest obstacle
Yeah.
that can be in anyone's way. And I don't know anyone who has not struggled with that at some point.
Perfectionism.
Gosh.
Isn't it terrible?
It's so terrible. It's hideous,
debilitating.
actually. Exactly.
Yeah, it's debilitating. Now I call myself a recovering perfectionist.
Same. Completely. Oh my God. And it's taken me hitting so many walls.
Yeah.
Like you said, actually it was motherhood. Motherhood was like it was like, girl.
That was a turning point for
It
you.
was such a huge turning point
Yeah.
for me. It was like, this perfection thing has got to go.
It's got to go.
There's no perfectionism in motherhood. It just does not exist.
No.
You know, and someone who's like
Yeah.
OCD, A-type, and a perfectionist, it was
Hello.
huge for me. This motherhood thing, I was like, it was like almost like suffocating anxiety, and I just had to surrender.
Yeah.
You know? Yes, yeah.
No, but it's so true, and that's why it's like I still sometimes have to keep myself in check because the reality is that I am on a journey, and so I don't claim to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. And so there's also this huge kind of, you know, I'm a transformational coach. I'm an international speaker. I've spoken on stages with some of the most incredible people like John DeMartini, Brandon Bays, you know, like all of these big names. And you're supposed to be like the top of your field, you know, to speak in those kind of circles. And I always moved away from that. And I was like, why? Why am I moving away from that? And I realize now that it was my truth speaking going, you're a collaborator. You're a contributor. You don't need to be the best. You don't need to be perfect anymore. Being a contributor, being a collaborator is the right space for you. It's the right
Right.
comfort point for you to be at. And so a lot of those big kind of online conferences and stuff, they're like the number one speaker in the world, the number one this, the blah, blah, blah.
50 million
And I
books sold.
couldn't figure out why I was like retracting from speaking on those stages, because I have been invited and I've done it, right? But I would just constantly be retracting. And I think that was the one thing. And then selling. I didn't want to have to sell to people. You know, those stages make you sell. And for me, it's more about creating the genuine connection with people. And if what I'm saying resonates with you and you feel you can be helped by it, then come work with me, because I'd love to support you, you know? So, but it's just interesting.
We are taking a quick break to talk about today's sponsor, Sorbet Sea Point at the Artem Gallery. Now, Sorbet is a household name if you live in South Africa. But did you know that Sorbet is a franchise, which means that each branch is owned by someone different, giving each branch a slightly unique experience. The lovely Mel, who owns Sorbet at the Artem Gallery, goes out of her way to make sure that every single experience in store is absolutely magical. They have the best treatments and the best specialists performing those treatments. I've been going to them for over 2 years now. My nails always look beautiful. They know exactly how I like everything. I've recently started threading my eyebrows there, and I just absolutely love every single time I go into store because it's always such a vibe.
Let's get back to the life. Like, I want to know like how you write in your bio, because it's so powerful to know that story and then dive into your journey of how you've ended up.
Yeah, I think the reason why people find it, and this is what I'm realizing, powerful, is because when somebody sees me, they go, oh, Susana, I mean, she must have like a super easy life.
Of course.
She's probably not been through much. Do you know what I mean? Like
easy
all of
peasy,
these things.
on a silver platter, you know? Yeah.
So I suppose the important thing to kind of know is that when I got sick, I had to face my truth and myself and all of the things that had happened to me. And it took a long time to diagnose what was going on. And in fact, it took me being in a wheelchair and then eventually in ICU, where they were prodding me with needles and biopsies and all kinds of things, like literally taking chunks out of my liver and kidneys to see what was actually going on, to try and figure out what it was that was killing me, because I was dying. And it was during that time that I learned so much about this fragile and precious human journey. And I had been the person who so often would have these thoughts of like, oh, it would just be easy if I died, you know? And like when you're driving and you think, maybe I'll just have an accident and then this can all be over.
Yeah.
And I know people think like this.
Yeah, I've had those thoughts.
Yeah. I know people think like
Scared the
this.
shit out of me. I'm like, what? Why am I thinking of driving off this bridge? Or like,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
My life's great. Like, what? You know?
Yeah.
But
And you know what I've realized, Karish, about that, which hopefully will bring some gentleness to you and anybody watching who has had these thoughts, is that I think it's two parts. I think that sometimes our souls tap into the collective consciousness of this sorrow that we are all carrying, you know, that we are all tapped into. You know, when somebody says that they're an empath, you know, for a long time it was like, oh, I'm an empath. We're all empaths.
Yeah.
Like
How
each
can we
and
not
every
be? We all
one
connected.
of us are connected. And so we all feel to varying degrees what is happening around us. And some people are just very much more consciously in tune. But it doesn't mean that the ones that are not consciously in tune are not feeling it.
Yeah.
And so I think that some of that sometimes is actually just you tapping into the collective for a moment and, oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot, you know, and I don't know how to fix it all.
Yeah.
Right?
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming. And sometimes it is that you're tapping into some part of yourself that feels individually like that's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think one of my most defining moments was realizing that we are not in control of what happens to us, and that everything that happens to us is a gift, even almost dying.
Yeah.
In fact, that was possibly the greatest gift that ever happened to me, was me facing my mortality and kind of going, oh, hold on. All those times that I thought I wanted to die, that's not actually true. There's so much more I still want to do. And I remember 2 days before I stopped walking, I had one of those moments that you read about in books and you see in movies, where I literally fell on my knees on the ground,
Oh my gosh.
snot crying, not gentle tears, like snot crying.
Snot and
like
trana.
the
Oh my
breath was
gosh.
just no longer in me. Like I was in so much pain and so much, and I just didn't know what to do anymore. And I breathed in and I said, God, Allah, Buddha, Krishna, universe, angels, all that is, whoever is out there, I know I have fucked up so solidly. Because I knew, I'd by that stage realized the mind-body-heart connection. I realized what my disease was doing to me. I didn't know what it was yet, but I knew what it was doing to me. I realized that it was because I had been abusing myself for such a long time, and that my body was just not putting up with it anymore and saying, I'm not letting you do this to me anymore. And I said, if it's my time to die, then I will accept that. But if you let me stay, I promise that I will do everything I can to make it worthwhile. And in that moment, I literally surrendered. So I'd been suffering, I think, my whole life. I can't even say for months, most intensely for months, because the physical pain had kicked in to an extreme state. You couldn't touch my skin. You couldn't, I couldn't swallow. I was completely dehydrated because I couldn't swallow. So I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink water. I couldn't, like, nothing could touch me. Light was too bright. Everything was just like too much. I was in the most excruciating pain. But after that, I remember I stopped suffering. My body was in pain, but I released. And I was like, whatever's going to happen is what is meant to happen for my soul.
Right.
And I completely trusted that everything that I needed, if I was going to live, would come my way.
Right.
And if I wasn't meant to live, that I would go in the quickest way now. And the suffering wouldn't be prolonged.
Yeah.
Because I had handed myself over to trust and to the universe. And when I say the universe, whether you believe in God, Allah, Buddha, Krishna, Ra,
Yeah.
it's all that is, like, to me, all rivers lead to the same ocean.
Completely.
You know? And I remember being in hospital, and when they finally diagnosed me, I was literally a few days away from dying. Like, I was right on the edge there, because I was having near organ failure in almost every single one of my organs. I had liquid in my lungs. I was having seizures. I just was in the worst possible state.
Susana,
The
oh my
only thing
God.
that hadn't been affected was my heart, ironically.
Oh, wow.
And then I remember them coming to me, and they brought me into consciousness, because I was being kept alive on steroids, and like high doses of steroids and morphine and all kinds of things for the pain. So I was kind of in and out of consciousness. I wasn't actually conscious very much during that time. I've got photographs of myself going like this, but I wasn't actually very conscious. And they brought me to consciousness, and they said, Susana, we've tried everything, nothing has worked. And so we have a last resort, which is chemotherapy, just to shut down your immune system. Because what I had was called systemic lupus.
Yeah.
And like cancer, it's a cell that can mutate. And if you get it in one organ and you catch it early enough, often it can be treatable. If it becomes multi-organ, like cancer, very often it's not treatable.
right.
So me being the overachiever and that
Had it
I
all
am,
over your
and
body, you were
having
like-
it like everywhere
Yeah,
in the most
exactly.
extreme state,
Oh my goodness.
was not looking good.
Yeah.
And so they said, that is our last resort. Like we've tried everything. There's nothing else we can do. And me being a little homeopathic baby who had sworn off chemotherapy said, absolutely do it.
Do it.
And they said, look, you're on a lot of drugs right now.
Maybe take a second
So
to think
we
about
need
it.
to actually, these next 2 days are going to be difficult because we've got to take you off a lot of the pain medication and the things that are blurring your reality so that you can think straight, because the first dose of chemo can kill you. Never mind, whether it works or not,
yeah.
right? And I said, okay. I said, do it. And I turned to my mom. I remember turning to my mom because they'd already taken me off stuff so that I could start thinking. I said, Mom, I need to do a John of God healing. I said, I emailed them before I collapsed, before I could stop walking and everything. I said, you need to get my laptop and I need to do it. And one of my best friends, Sandy, was there and she got my laptop and emailed them. They were amazing. They usually only did distant healings on a Thursday, but I was having emergency chemo.
Right.
So this was Thursday, and I had to have the chemo on Saturday because it was like the last chance, right? And so they generously organized a healing for me on the Friday.
Wow.
And I did a lot of things, but I definitely think that healing was something that the universe sent for me as a gift. Even my dad, who was very skeptical about all of my spiritual practices before,
Right.
saw a shift in me after that healing. And do you want to know about the healing?
Of course. And I want to know, were you always spiritual? So this wasn't the shift that led you into like kind of so you were always spiritual.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I went through a phase of denying it. And I mean, when I was little, I saw auras all the time and I saw spirits. I saw, well, I don't know how to describe it better than to say that I see things in my mind's eye. So it's not, I know that it's not physically present,
Right.
but I still see it and I still experience it and I still hear things.
Right.
So the first time that loved ones that had passed or spirits that had passed started speaking quite clearly to me was when my cousin passed. He was the closest person to me. So that was later on. But it wasn't that I hadn't experienced spirit before.
Right.
It was just that they had freaked me out.
Of course. And you didn't have understanding
I
of
didn't
what was
understand.
happening.
Nobody around me could do it.
Yeah.
And so it was weird. And even saying to like kids, like, oh, look how blue you are today. Your
Right.
light is so blue. And
Yeah.
then them like being like,
What
what are you talking about, you
Yeah.
strange child,
Yeah.
you know? To the point where I stopped wanting to see auras because that's like weird and that's strange and I'm not normal, you
Right.
know? And as a kid, you want to be normal because you've been, you
I want to know what color my aura is.
So this is the interesting thing is that now I have to truly tap into it to see it.
That's what this-
Whereas then it was just instinctual and normal, you know? And
It's weird how we dull these things. in us,
totally
eh?
dull it, yeah. And I think which came out during my journey of figuring out all these things that had happened to me that caused me to beat myself up, which we haven't really spoken about, but I was abused from when I was about 2.5, 3, till I was about 11. I was sexually abused, and I had suppressed all of that. I didn't remember any of it.
Right.
And when I was 25, I went for a hypnotherapy session, and it came up in the session, like I had all this flood of memories, and I was like, no, I can't cope with the idea that this is my reality, because by that stage, by 25, what I could remember was that my biological father was extremely physically abusive, and I had memories of that.
Right.
And I lost my virginity to rape at 16 with my ex-boyfriend. And so to have that already in my reality, I was like, no. I wasn't sexually abused when I was little. No, that's just not part of my reality. I'm not going there. And I remember going home to my ex-husband and saying, this is what came up. It's not my reality. It didn't happen. No. And I did not think about it again until I got sick. Blocked it out again. Completely blocked it out again.
Were you divorced when you got sick?
Yes. Yeah. Because getting divorced was the biggest death I've ever overcome.
Right.
It was harder for me to get divorced than almost die, because I had so desperately, as a little girl, wanted a family that was mine,
Yes.
that I belonged to, you know? And so I put everything into this man that chose me, right?
Yeah.
He chose me. My biological father didn't choose me.
Right. And here's this man choosing.
He chose me.
Wow. Yeah.
And he did it straight away. Like, he literally, the night we had our first conversation, he said, I'm going to marry you one day. And I was like, whatever, crazy person.
Right.
You know? And it took him 6 months to get me to go out with him. But he knew. And that made me then go, well, then he must know.
Yeah, exactly.
He must know. And so even though there were aspects of our relationship that were severely dysfunctional, he loved me.
And he chose you.
And he chose me.
Yeah.
And because I didn't know what that felt like in any other way, I was like, this has to be what is valuable. This has to be, right? And that was a journey in itself, because I eventually left because I got to the point where I was like, either I'm so depressed in this relationship, either I'm going to kill myself, or I need to do the impossible and leave.
Right.
And I need to, if I'm going to leave, it's because I don't know that I deserve more, but I want to believe. I want to believe that I deserve more.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also so brave to anybody who's listening, is that sometimes we don't know that we deserve more. Sometimes it just takes us wanting to believe that we deserve more, and being brave enough to just take that first step to break our hearts and blow up our entire realities.
I mean, I wasn't married, but I was in a relationship for 6.5 years with the quintessential Indian man that everyone would have loved me to have married. And it was so bad, and he was so manipulative and controlling at the end, and it was the same. He chose me and he loved me, and it was all of these things, and we were the perfect couple.
And your family loved him.
And our families were friends. It was idyllic, you know, really it was. But no one knew what was going on, you know, underneath everything. And it just got, and I was this caged tiger. And it was, I don't even think that it was that I wanted to believe that I deserved more, but I knew this wasn't my life. I knew there was more for me. Like, I was like, there has to be.
Yeah.
I can't be a caged tiger. I am not a caged tiger. You know, I am a wild tiger.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And it got to that, I don't know what made me get to that point, but, you know, yeah. So
I remember us speaking about this while we were getting our nails done.
Yeah, exactly.
That's our catch-up spot.
Sorbet. We are sorbet, ladies.
We are so sorbet girls.
Sorbet Artem Gallery. That is the one, people, just so you know. And we often use it as our little catch-ups.
It is,
and it's the best.
It is the best. It's the best. But I remember you telling me that story. I remember it like really, really clearly. And I remember that was your bravery.
Yeah.
Stepping away from that and having your beautiful husband also step
the
in
reward,
the way.
The biggest reward.
Stepping in the way that he did, right? Was the reward. And for me, my reward was me stepping in a different way. Yeah. And I think that that's also something that I hadn't anticipated. I was waiting for a white knight. You know, I was waiting to be rescued. And I think so many people, not just women. Like, I think so many people are waiting to be rescued by someone else, not realizing that we have to rescue ourselves, you know?
It was the same thing. I mean, Gail did step in, but I had to rescue myself in that I had to be brave enough to leave.
Yes.
To recognize my own bullshit, to bring myself back towards myself, to realize, in fact, Gail was so taken aback and he loved it, but like all my cards were on the table. I was like, this is how I am in the morning. This is how I like to fight. This is like, it was just like, I'm going to shoot everything at you because if you can't handle the fire now, then I'm out of here. Because, you know, I'm not dealing with any more bullshit.
Yes.
You know, but that was me taking control and stepping in for myself.
Yeah.
You know, before I could let him, you know.
Yeah.
Step
And
in.
not wasting your time.
Yeah, exactly.
And not wasting his time. And I think that that's so important. And I think it's one of the things that, like, people really get wrong. And I've gotten wrong.
Yeah.
You know, is that we start a relationship putting forward this aspect that we think they want.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Instead of just going, this is what I want, this is who I am. If that scares you,
Yeah, if you can't handle it,
like,
bye-bye.
bye. Thanks.
Because what are we doing here
yeah,
then?
What are we
you know?
doing here? You
Exactly.
know? Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's hard. Like, I know saying it is kind of like easier said than done. But that bravery is going to be so rewarding in the long run. I mean, it set up the most incredible foundation, you know, for Gail and I, because we were both brave enough. We'd both come out of hectic relationships. And for Gail, it was so refreshing that this girl didn't play any games. It was like, this is it, buddy.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it, you know? And it allowed him actually to do the same.
Yeah.
You know, and we were like,
Absolutely.
okay, I see you. You know, I can work with that. You know, and it was the first relationship that I was in, and I think it was because of that honesty, that it wasn't this whole thing of like, we had an argument, oh, now we need to take a break. This whole, like, it was really like a young high school thing that I
Yes.
carried through all my relationships, like, oh, we need to take a break. And Gail's like, what do you mean? He's like, we're in a relationship, like, we're going to talk about this and work through this. And, you know, and I was like, oh, so you don't need to run away from me for a while. It was like huge for me,
Yeah.
you know?
But what a beautiful gift.
What a beautiful, and it's like, it's laid that foundation for, like, for our whole relationship, coming back to this thing of like, you know, we fix things, we repair things, you know.
We gild them with
gild
love
them.
and courage
Exactly.
and
We
compassion.
don't chuck them away because we
No.
have something of value,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
and so many
absolutely.
people are just like, they want to throw the towel in the minute something gets hard, you know.
Yeah.
And I think we've just gotten so used to that in this day and age. Because everything's so replaceable.
Absolutely.
Everything's so expensive. It's become too easy
Yeah.
to get the
for
new one,
sure.
to upgrade, to do this, to do that. You know, we've really lost this thing of valuing what we have.
And what's so interesting about what you're saying there in terms of relationships, you know, imago therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love their theory around relationships and how we will always call in who we need in order to heal an aspect of ourselves, right? And so healing happens in layers. So your core wounds, whatever your core wounds are, those are them, guys. Sorry. I know that sucks as news, but the good news is that when they show up, you can move through them in a completely different way when you've done the work. And I think that that's the important part, is that people want to be fixed, right? But the reality is that nobody's ever just fixed. We're on a healing journey, and we've done work that enables us to greet the challenges, the wounds, the trigger points in a different way. And that is the healing. It's not about being fixed.
Not about a
because
switch that goes
it's not
on
a
and
switch.
no.
Yeah, it
Exactly.
doesn't work like that. So for instance, this whole thing of attracting abusive men into my life, right? It has happened in layers, and it's not freaking linear.
Exactly.
It's not linear. It goes like this, you know,
and we have
it
to
goes
be willing
like
to do
this.
the work and ride the roller coaster. And so many people are not. So many people want that magic pill.
Yeah, because It's hard.
Yeah, it's flipping hard, man.
It's not like, I know Robin is one of my mentors and best friends, Robin Banks. Yes, he's freaking amazing and I love him. And he says, Susana, don't say hard, say challenging. And I'm like, but sometimes things are just fucking hard, Robin.
Fucking hard. Oh my goodness.
You know, and I'm
like,
okay to say
but this
that.
is my thing. It's like, I
You
just
know?
want to be allowed to say that it's hard.
Yes.
Like
You're allowed.
Thank you.
With
It's
me,
like,
you're allowed.
I'm all about words and making things accessible and positive, and yes, it's challenging. Like even with motherhood, I'm like, it's just fucking hard.
Sometimes it's just fucking hard. I know.
I always find myself like writing this like an Instagram post or something, and I want to share this challenge and this journey and whatever, and I'm like, type out, it's so challenging. I'm like, oh, fuck off, Karishma. Like, you know, like seriously, like it's just hard and it's horrible and I hate it right now.
Yes.
And, you know, why did I want to have a child? Who told me this was going to be okay? You know, and I mean, 10 minutes later, it's a completely different story and it's this little angel and I'm like, how could I live without you? But it's okay that it was hard in that moment.
But you've just hit the nail on the head. Because the more work we do on specific wounds, the quicker we move through them when they come. So that wall that hit that splinter, right?
Yep.
That wall that hit that splinter, before you would fall down on the floor and fall apart.
Yeah.
Because that splinter was so severe. But now, you know that splinter is there. You've done the work. It taps the wall and you go, oh, hi. Oh, I see.
Hi. Hey.
You're still there?
Hey, old friend.
Wow. Look how far I've come. And you can move through, right? And that's the difference. And so my greatest passion in life is twofold. I have experienced from a human perspective what suffering is in so many different ways, because I have been sexually abused. I know what that feels like. I have been raped. I know what that feels like. I have had miscarriages. I know what that feels like.
Right.
I have been divorced. I know what that feels like. I have been in long-term abusive relationships, so I know what that feels like. So I've had these things, and then I've been so debilitated by physical pain that I couldn't function. So I know what that feels like, right? So I'm kind of tapping in to all these different human conditions, human experiences that are suffering, right? But I also know that it's all temporary.
Yeah.
It's all completely temporary, and none of it defines who I am. But what does define who I am is how I've chosen to move through these different things that have come my way.
Do you think that all these, you have been given all these experiences so that you can help others heal?
100%. 100%. And if I did not know all of these things, I wouldn't understand suffering in the way that I do.
And that's a big core of your work, hey, I think.
100%. Because when people speak to me about what they're going through, I can hold that space with them. And there's so much healing within that space. You know, we were talking about earlier on when I was a kid and whether I was spiritually tapped in. I started healing when I was little. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I didn't know, but I remember being on class camp and not knowing what I was doing. So I'd take a stomach ache away from a child.
Right.
But I'd put it in me because I didn't know.
Didn't know what type,
I didn't know where to send it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I didn't know that I could take it out and just send
back
it
to the
out,
universe.
You know,
And, you know,
yes. So I've had to learn. It's, you know, I think we are all born with different abilities. I've had to study, I've had to learn, I've had mentors, I've had coaches, and so I've always been spiritual. I've always been connected to source, to spirits, to angels. I've always seen things that are strange to others, you know, but the reality is I've worked on it as well. All of us need to work on it.
And I want to say that it's so different to be held and healed by someone who has been in your shoes. It's just there have been wonderful healers that have come and gone in my life, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, but to be held and seen by someone who knows exactly, you know, and is not trying to empathize, but can. It's like, it's huge. It's such a gift,
Yeah.
you know, that you have and you are able to give others. Do you feel like there's been stigma attached to you being vocal about, firstly, being a divorcee? I know that's huge for a lot of women. Being raped, being abused. Are those stigmas that follow you around or have?
I think I was aware of them at one point in my life, but they're just not in my consciousness now, you know. I was saying to you, like, the things that are my core, like, drivers, because I've known suffering, I want to minimize suffering as much as possible in this world. And part of that is taking away from those stigmas, right? And part of that requires me to be honest about who I am and what I've been through. Because the amount of women that come to me and tell me their truths, even when I just do a talk somewhere. You know, Karish, I did a talk at a dental association the other day.
Oh my goodness.
I know. And afterwards, I had an old white guy, Jewish guy, crying on my shoulder.
Wow.
I had a 30-something-year-old black guy crying on my shoulder. I had a very old woman, I don't even know how she was at this dental association.
What was she doing there?
Crying on my shoulder. I had a white girl in her 20s crying on my shoulder. This is what happens, because when we are honest about what we've been through, and that it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay that you went through that. It's okay that you responded in that way. You know, when I got raped, you know what I did?
What?
I went to, because that was my ex-boyfriend that raped me. I went to my boyfriend's house and I made him have sex with me. I'd never slept with him before. But I needed to take my power back.
Right.
And he was completely confused.
He was like,
I think he didn't know what was going on.
wow.
Right? But because I had sex with him and then I bawled my eyes out, and he was like, this is a very strange reaction.
Yeah,
for somebody
exactly.
to, like, be having. And I told that story once, and this girl just literally, like, she fell apart. And she spoke to me afterwards, and she said she was raped once. She had been at a party. She ended up kissing a guy, and he ended up raping her. And she went to a bar, and the first guy who was kind to her, she made him take her home, and she had sex with him. And she has felt such immense shame around that for such a long time, right? And I said, but that's so normal.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so allowed.
Why wouldn't you feel like you needed your power back?
That you need your power back.
Yeah.
And so that is I do believe that's why I'm alive.
Right.
Is so that I can create the space to hold that every response is valid.
Right.
Every feeling you felt is valid. You know, everything that you experience is valid because you are valid.
Right.
Right? And so many of us don't feel valid.
Yeah.
So many of us think that, oh no, I didn't respond in the right way. I didn't do this right. I'm not important enough. And we retract from life like this.
How do we cultivate that in ourselves and in others?
What, the feeling valid?
Yes.
Is by stopping and taking a breath and holding yourself and being brave enough to do the work and going, I'm valid. I'm allowed to feel these things. These things belong to me. They are mine to feel. And of course, like, you know, a lot of people say you can't trust your feelings, right? And sometimes you can't trust your feelings, but that's if you're in a state of like, you know,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you can cultivate the tools to bring you into center, to allow you to be the eye of the storm, no matter what situation you find yourself in, because the world, there's stuff going on all the time, right? Yeah. So how do we cultivate the tools to, when the world is happening, that we can still be the eye of the storm no matter where we are, and respect ourselves.
Yeah.
Be sovereign enough to say, I matter. What I feel matters, what I think matters. And so I understand that you're going through that, and I can see that, but that doesn't take away from me and my experience and where I am at, right? It's a very different energy to, I'm fucking panicking, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You are valid. And the thing is that one of the biggest problems is that we do collectively feel the wound of trauma, right? And when we feel that wound of trauma, that puts us in that trauma response. And so we need to pull ourselves out of the trauma response and be in the conscious response. Right. Stop, think, what would my highest self do in this situation? What would the best version of me, if I could be the best version of me, what would they do in this situation?
And it's okay to always not get it right as well. We're not always going to be able to stop and think and, you know.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that you actually said, out of people that I've interviewed a lot of people over the years. I've had radio shows since 2012.
Wow.
So I've interviewed a lot of people,
yeah.
Right? And one of my favorite things that somebody has said is something you said, is that we're all juggling, right? And some of them are glass balls, and some of them are plastic balls, and some of them, some of them can be dropped, right? So knowing which balls can be dropped, because we're juggling, right?
All the time.
And sometimes you drop a glass ball.
That's okay.
And you drop a glass ball.
And you deal with it.
I did my best.
Exactly.
Next time,
and
something might be different, but right now that's what needed to happen.
And give yourself that grace. And honestly, I keep on bringing it back to motherhood, but motherhood has been like my biggest teacher, and my child has been my biggest teacher. But I could not even wrap my mind around that before having a child. It was not a part of my reality.
Yeah.
To fail in any way, like drop a plastic ball, drop a glass ball?
What? You didn't!
No, I mean, you might as well chop my head off right now and toss it in the bin. It's just like, and I struggle with that even now, like that perfectionism, trying to put this thing together, and the universe was like, I'm going to make you sick, I'm going to make your child sick, I'm going to make your husband sick, I'm going to every obstacle in your way, because you're going to learn that this ain't going to be perfect. And I'm like, I need it to be, this is the baby that I'm birthing into the world. And the universe is like, well, child, what has motherhood taught you?
Yeah.
And it's just been like all of these things, and Gail was like, why don't we postpone? And I was like,
postpone? What? You didn't.
Also, I am a thespian. I am an actor. The show must
I will show up.
It is in my blood. I can soften in a lot of ways, baby. But the show will go on. Come
and I get it, because I've had a stomach bug the whole of the beginning of this week, right? Gosh. And still, what did I do on Tuesday night? I went and did the Future Females show. Because somehow this button switches on in thespians. I swear to God.
I haven't coughed once, guys. Watch the cameras go off. It's going to be me quick, coughing.
4 o'clock, fevering in bed. 5 o'clock, in an Uber, on my way, on stage at 6.
Smiling and shining.
I've done it.
Baby? I'm not the only one.
It's ingrained. And that started when I was on my first show that was on stage, because I was on stage for 9 months. And you weren't allowed to be sick. No. 9 months. From Tuesday to Sunday, you were on stage. It didn't matter what happened. No. So yes, sometimes the whole cast had stomach bug, and we would be going backstage, throwing up in buckets backstage, and then you would get back on stage.
I've danced with a slip disc, literally you know, like literally.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing Roald Dahl's Matilda, and I was Matilda, and like a 90-minute show twice every day,
Yes.
and I got sick from kids. Germs are like, I
Next
don't know,
level
like
stuff, yeah.
like
They're special little
super,
creatures.
like I don't know what it is. But I hadn't had a child then. I don't know what, like,
Yeah.
it was my first time actually experiencing like kids' germs, coughing up, like I've never been so sick in my life. The show had to go on.
Yeah.
And come like 5:30 in the morning, my pigtails were in, the outfit was on, and I was ready to be Matilda.
Yeah.
You know?
But you know what I've learned, Karish, is now I choose when to allow myself to do that.
No, completely. It's
And
really
so on Tuesday I did, but I cancelled like 4 things the week before. I was just like, you're exhausted, you're working too hard at the moment. Cancelled like 4 things.
And I mean, I was dying to come. You so graciously
I know.
invited me, and it was really one of the shows that I really wanted to be there. But
When
I was
you
like,
said I can't, I was like, okay. And I don't take offense to it anymore.
and I knew you would understand. And
You
I
know?
think, can everyone just be more understanding and not be offended? Because sometimes that is the worry as well.
100%.
And especially in our industry, you're like, if we say no, will she never invite me again?
But
You know,
but this
will
is
I
the
be
thing, is
cancelled?
like once you get to that place of kind of going, okay, I know my value and my greatest priority is taking care of myself so that I can be the best I can be in this
Exactly.
world. And if you're getting offended by it, then that's something you need to look at. It's got actually nothing to do with me.
Exactly.
You know?
And also, it's like my priorities have shifted. Like, I need to take care of myself so I can take care of my family.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's not serving me or my family right now, then I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
with the greatest amount of kindness in my heart. You know, but that's just how I have to approach everything. I've had to be so hectic with my boundaries because I was not going to survive. And if I don't survive, my child won't survive. It's literally that like primal.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's had to, I think the universe was like, well, this girl ain't gonna get it any other way. Unless
Let's
we
give
take
her
it
a
down
child.
to like the literal, like raw,
Yeah.
most primal instinct of life. If you are not okay, your child will not be okay. And like, it literally had to be that to shift my mind.
But how many mothers are not okay?
Well, this is the thing.
This is the crazy thing for me, is that I know so many mothers that are not okay.
Are not okay.
And then, this is my invitation to moms. Children do not listen to what you say.
Yep.
They
listen.
they become what you are.
Exactly, Susana. But it's also,
Like-
you know, I had done the work. I was already on this journey
Yeah.
of doing the work, you know, and I think that's important. I think if you embark on motherhood, and nothing's right or wrong, and there's no judgment here, like
No.
whatsoever. But it's hard to do the work when you already have a child. It's like almost impossible
Yeah.
to do the work when you've already had a child.
But it's so necessary. And the reason why I'm framing it like that is because moms get to a place where it's like, oh, I have to put my child first. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously my child's needs come first. Okay, well, if your child's needs come first, realize that you not being your greatest self is not serving your child's needs. And you taking out an hour a day or 2 hours a day to take care of yourself is going to better serve your child. So do everything you can to do that.
Some moms just can't see it. I've got so many friends who just cannot
I know.
see it that way,
I
and
know.
it's so heartbreaking for me. Like, I know 1000% when I take time out to even go to work because my work feeds me and fills my soul, I'm a 100% better mom. I'm able to come back to Isla and be present, you know, rather than just being there because I have to be there and I have to take care of this child, and you know, it's the plod.
Yeah.
And some days are like that. Do you know what I mean? And that's okay. But when I can fill my cup and I have so much to give to her, and I can be present and I can enjoy motherhood instead of feeling like it's something that's been put upon me
Yes.
and something that is happening to me,
Yes.
and there's no escape, and I can feel like that so quickly.
Yeah.
You know, there's no escape and this thing has been thrown on me, you know? So I wish more moms would really just get that,
Yeah.
you know?
But we can only get what we're ready to get.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And that was also something that I realized, and that took so much pressure off me as well, was that you will only realize what you're ready to realize.
Yep.
You can read the same book
Exactly.
today and read it in a year's time, and I promise you your takeaways
Totally different.
will be different, right? So it's the same as when I remembered that I had been abused, and I was ready to acknowledge that that had happened to me. It was completely different, right, from that time years before that. And I remember even having to tell my brother was the worst for me,
Wow.
you know, because I was telling him that our biological father had abused me.
Right.
And I remember his response was, I know, Susana, we've spoken about it.
Wow.
And I was there, right? And I was like, because I had built myself into a complete state about telling him this horrible truth. And this is what we do. We sit in isolation with these horrible truths, right? But often people already know. When I told my best friend, same thing. I was like, because I'd known her since I was 8. We'd been best friends since I was 8. So when I went to her and I was like, I have to tell you something, this has come up. She was like, I know. Like, I remember. Wow. And my brain blocked it out because my heart was not ready to digest the enormity of what had happened to me, right? So, but my body couldn't hold it anymore. And so I got sick.
Wow.
Right? Lupus, the mind-body-heart connection of lupus is your body trying to kill itself. And I'll never forget the moment I realized what I was doing to myself. I'd been talking to my psychologist about the abuse, and we were doing shadow work, which I know you're familiar with, as within, so without. And he said, Susana, as within, so without. He said, you've attracted so much abuse into your life. He said, where are you abusing yourself? And I was like, he said, where are you being abusive? Sorry. And I was like, what? And I remember my words. I was like, me? Abusive? I step over ants for crying out loud. You know, I've never consciously hurt another living thing in my life. And I remember the moment, like, because I went away and I really thought about it. And I remember that moment where I realized that I'd been abusing myself. And it was like a ton of bricks, like literally like this, it winded me, hit my chest. And I was like, oh my God, I've been abusing myself my whole life. I've never been good enough. I've never been perfect enough. I've never been clever enough. I've never been beautiful enough. I've never been funny enough. I've never been successful enough. I've never been smart enough. I've never been thin enough. I've never been enough. And I remember like trying to catch my breath in these words that I was realizing. And I remember my body and myself like splitting and my body just saying, fuck you, I'm not letting you do this anymore. And within 3 months, I was in a wheelchair. From that moment, like literally in 3 months, I could not walk anymore.
Wow.
I could not swallow anymore.
Wow.
Without being in the most agonizing pain. And the irony and beauty of that situation is that in that moment, I realized I had to start loving myself. I had to start showing myself compassion. I had to start this journey of self-love that I had no idea how to start.
Right.
I had no idea how to love myself. I could not. It took me 3 weeks to finally look myself in the mirror, shaking, not wanting to, and say, I love you. And I did not mean it.
Wow.
I could not look myself in the mirror in my eyes and say, I love you. Couldn't do it because I didn't have it in me. And you'd be amazed, Karish, at how few women and men can look themselves in the mirror and say, hey, I love you. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
I know it's not easy. I know that life can be fucking tough, but you're showing up and you're doing a great job. Thank you for showing up for me.
We always taught to
Right.
put ourselves last, hold compassion for ourselves last, you know?
And not
So,
acknowledge ourselves.
I know.
Not acknowledge ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, don't you dare acknowledge that you've done something.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you, like, so full of yourself?
Exactly.
You know, wow,
We
she's got
always
an
think
ego.
it has to come back to ego.
Yeah.
But it's not always about ego, right?
No. And one of the, like, I remember listening to a beautiful interview with Oprah. I loved it because she said, I'm so full of myself. You know?
Yeah.
And all the girls like that were listening, it was like this this university full of girls, you know, this college in the States,
Right.
and they all kind of were like Oprah's like
what?
admitting that
Right.
she's like so full of herself.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, but I'm not full of myself like you think.
Yeah.
I know myself. I am so full of self-knowledge and self-care
Yeah.
that my cup is never empty.
Wow.
And so when I give,
Goosebumps.
I know, when I give, I'm giving from a full cup. I'm not emptying myself.
Right.
And so the work that I'm passionate about is how do we get individuals to be so full of themselves
Right.
that the cup is actually splashing over into the saucer, and you got a little teaspoon and you're just giving
Giving
everyone
it out,
from the
baby.
saucer, right? Because it's overflowing.
Exactly.
And so it's not only about healing trauma. It's not only about getting to a place where we're suffering less so that we can live more with ease and grace and joy, but it's also about stepping into this most authentic, most powerful version of ourselves that we can show up and go, here I am.
Yeah.
My
Look
light
at me, world.
and my dark.
Exactly.
All of the things that I've fucked up on.
I mean, I remember the first time doing shadow work and my mind being blown. Like, I'd held all of it in so much shame for so long.
Yeah.
And my mind being blown by the power of
Yeah.
me embracing, you know, my shadow
Yeah.
can hold, you know.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, so all of this is so exciting to me, so tantalizing. I'm like,
Can I say something on shadow before you
Yes,
move on
yes,
from
yes,
that?
please do.
Because I think that it's so important to hold that. Is my shadow, Karish, is self-love. Is believing that I'm worthy
yeah,
of. And so I am that teacher.
yes,
And so when people look at me, I'm not the expert. I'm a contributor. I'm a collaborator. I will work with you. Do I have moments where I doubt myself? Absolutely.
right.
Right? Do I have moments where I fail myself? Absolutely. Do I show up anyway? Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful because it gives us the permission to do the same.
And
You know,
that's it.
to know that you're not some guru, some god that we, you know, it's like, you know, that we hold
And
up on
please
this
don't
thing.
ask me to be.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I cannot do
Oh my
that for
God.
anyone, right?
But okay, so now, I mean, I would love to work with you. Would like the kinstakuroy?
Kinstakuroy, yes.
Kinstakuroy. Is that only for people who feel like they're broken? I'm sorry,
No.
in some way. Or is it for anyone? Or would it be best to work with you one-on-one?
So for me, first of all, none of us are broken. We've all been cracked.
Yes, okay.
So I think that like moving away from this
Idea of being broken.
idea of being broken, I think we've all been cracked. And I mean, I've used that terminology before as well, you know, and in fact, I used to do this talk where I was like, I've been cracked by life, you know.
Right.
Not little cracks, more like, you know, a plate at a Greek wedding where
Smashed.
the father is so excited,
Yeah.
you know, for his daughter that he's like smashed
Smashed.
the plate
Yeah.
into a million little pieces to the point where I felt like dust. But what a perfect place to start. I mean, add water to dust and you create clay that you can create any form out of, right? And so all of us have been cracked. There is no exception. All of us have been cracked by life. Some of us are here on our journey. Some of us are there on our journey. Some of us are there on our journey. I work with everyone. I have clients that are such high performers and are so brilliantly bright already where they are. Doesn't mean they're not struggling.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they don't have battles. Doesn't mean that they don't come to me and cry and that I don't hold space for them. Doesn't mean that they don't come to me and celebrate their achievements with me, right? And then I have clients who are really struggling and I hold a completely different space for them there. There is no exception. We're all human. This is why I can speak at a dental association and I can speak with you.
Right.
We're all human. We're all on this human journey together.
Right.
And the reality is that we've just been through a world war.
Yep.
And people are trying to pretend that they haven't been through a war, but they have. And there's a collective trauma that all of us are moving through at the moment. And there's individual trauma that all of us are moving through at the moment. There is no one who does not have trauma in their lives. Even Oprah,
Exactly.
Richard Branson, all of them. Everybody experiences traumas in their lives. How do we move through these with the least amount of suffering, the least amount of struggle, and the most ease and grace? Those are part of the tools that I work with.
Right.
I also channel. So it's very much whatever you need. So if we're working as one-on-one, then it's very tailored to you.
Right.
Like, what do you need? And
What's coming up right now
for you right now. And it's amazing. It does amaze me still because I have not lost my childish enthusiasm for life or for these gifts that I am lucky enough to tap into. But I get amazed. Like I'll sometimes be speaking to a client and I'll go, oh, you know, have you got the stone? Like a specific, like a jasper or whatever. And she'll go, what? For some reason, you know, that stone is really important and your brother is holding it in his hand. Her brother passed away and she had that stone at the hospital with him, right? So he was holding it in his hand to say, like, he's here and he appreciated that stone,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
So I never know what these things are and what they're gonna come, like what's gonna come up. I never know what you specifically need because it's literally dropped into me by your spiritual team.
Wow. And how...
So my course is different.
Okay, yes.
One-on-one coaching is completely tailored to you.
Right.
And I combine the channeling with years of studying. Right? Because I have been studying personal development for years and healing.
When I look at you, I just see this, like you are always this bright, beaming ball of energy that walks into a room, and you always held so much compassion and kindness for just everyone that you meet, and you are everyone's biggest cheerleader. Like, and I love that about you. But I also know, like we've spoken about, that you also have bad days.
For sure.
And
I swear at people when I drive.
What?
I have road rage. It's disgusting.
No.
It is my least favorite
Who
quality.
are you right now?
My least favorite qualities about myself that I literally, like, they're cringe-worthy to me, okay? I'm like, you're a, oh my gosh, you're this, like, amazing person, and yet total road rage. I'm like, why do people not know how to drive, and why are they not considerate? It really pisses me off, you know? And I remember actually laughing because Ellen was saying she's never allowed to get cross because she's frickin' Ellen, right? And so she's like, the one day she hooted.
And people were like,
oh my God, it was in the news, it was fucking everywhere, right?
Oh my God.
And I think about that, like when I'm driving, I'm like, did somebody just recognize me sitting in my car going, for fuck's sake?
She's a fraud.
Learn how to drive.
She's not that smiley, wonderful person that we know.
So that's my one that is just, I mean, like, cringeworthy, right? But it's true. I do. I swear at people. And Robin laughs at me. He's like, what? You swear at people in the privacy of your own
driving.
car?
No, gonna see what car you drive and I'll be like, if I'm around that car, just
I'm
gonna.
like, Robin, I think bad thoughts about people when I drive. And he's like, oh my God, you're such a bad person.
You're such a bad person. Oh my God.
And then because I'm a recovering perfectionist, I have to watch my patience levels. That I have to watch about myself. That is a shadow of mine. And so incompetence, and I'm going to say it like that, can trigger me. And I see that shadow of mine.
And I saw you working with it the other day, my friend, on set.
Yeah, yes, you saw me.
But I saw you, I actually saw it in front of my eyes. I saw you recognize it. I saw you take a deep breath. I saw you process it, and I saw you move on, and I was like, whoa, I like that.
I was like, okay, this is what's happening.
Yeah, we worked on a very challenging shoot.
It was literally the most challenging shoot I've ever had, but we got there, and it was all good.
And you handled it all so beautifully.
Oh my God, thank you, thank you.
But I mean, in those moments, like how do you pull yourself out of having a bad day?
So, first of all,
a bad moment.
I think that that's the defining thing, is that, you know, we're all going to feel heartbreak. We're all going to feel sorrow. My heart's a little bit broken at the moment. I've just come out of a possible relationship, something that I thought was possibly going to be something that it isn't. And what I do is I allow myself to feel. What we tend to do as a society is we distract. We will do anything we can not to feel those uncomfortable emotions, right? And that is the worst thing we can do, because when we do that, we're literally creating a toxic pool inside ourselves that we're locking away, that one day can cause dis-ease, right?
Right.
If it's not dealt with.
Yeah.
And there's a beautiful poem called The Guest House. And I think it's Rumi. And I believe we need to welcome every emotion in as we would a guest into a guest house, right? So when I feel angry, when I feel sad, when I feel completely lost, I treat myself like my own baby.
Wow, I love that.
You know, because I wasn't nurtured when I was little. My mom was dealing with an abusive marriage. She didn't have the capacity, right? And she did the best she could.
Of course.
But also my gran, bless her, I had an amazing relationship with my gran. She was not a nurturing person.
Right.
So my mom and my gran, I arrived and I was like, wah! Like this little limpet that literally attaches and loves to everything, right? And they were like, what the fuck?
Can't deal with
creature,
this. I don't know how to deal with this.
Didn't know. And I would grab their arms and wrap them around each other to hug each other. So my journey of being nurtured did not happen. So my wiring of my brain, and I think that this happens to a lot of people in different ways, you have to learn to self-nurture. You have to learn to look after yourself and show up for yourself as the person you're looking for out there, or you needed when you were a child, right? And give yourself that space and time. So literally, if your heart is broken, like, go, okay, I'm going to give myself an hour. I'm going to listen to sad music. I'm going to snot cry. I'm going to watch a film and just let myself feel all these feelings that I need to feel. I'm going to write. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to honor this emotion that I've got here. And what happens is amazing, is as soon as you do that, you release it.
Yeah, and it just becomes a moment.
Right? And then it doesn't have to be a whole day. I'm so sorry, that is my alarm. Sorry, Susana. Yes, you can totally turn it off. My bad.
That's okay.
As soon as you release it, as soon as you allow yourself that space to release it, it goes. And then you realize that actually you're happy. Right? And then you realize, and I love this analogy because I am the ocean. There's something about me and that body of water that is just
so there with you.
it is my happy space. When I am next to it, I am calm in a different way. I can get in it. I'm like, the ocean and me are connected in an incredible way. And I think it's because I realize that, you know, Rumi says you're not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop. But I don't think people realize what that means. I am both wild and calm.
Exactly.
I am both happy and sad. And those can live side by side, and I can tap into them and
it's not one or the
truly
other.
honor each of them as they come up in me, you know? And then I don't have to be this sad person or this
define
happy
you.
person.
Yeah.
I am just a human being experiencing life to its fullest. Because trust me, when I cry and I hurt, Karish, I cry and I hurt.
And that's so beautiful
you know?
for me
There's
because, you know, that is part of the human experience. And I think we've gotten so stuck into letting our emotions define us. And we are not one thing at one time. We are complex beings.
And this positive, this toxic positivity is just, it's not okay because it makes people feel inadequate. And none of us are supposed to be happy all the time. We're supposed to be on this journey.
And I'm so conscious of that with my daughter. Like, you know, we expect kids to like behave this way and be happy and don't cry and always be in a good mood and whatever. And I'm like, they're little humans.
Yes.
They have to
Let them
feel
be human.
sad and cry and do all of these things and scream and shout and experience this wide variety of emotions that we are so gifted to have, you know?
Absolutely. And it's like someone I know is going through a divorce, and he was telling me how, no, his kids are doing really well and like they've kept it really together, you know? And they can see that the parents are doing well, so they're doing well. And I said, I actually think it's really important for you to let them know how hard this has been, and that even though it's hard, you're okay, and it's okay for it to be hard,
and it's okay for it to be okay.
And that is going to be the biggest gift for them, because if you keep pretending that you're okay, even though this hard thing has happened, your family's fallen apart, your kids are going to have to think that, okay, so even though like my whole fucking world has exploded,
I have to be okay.
It's okay. Like, I'm okay. Everything's okay. No, it's not fucking okay. And you know what? That's okay.
Exactly.
You know?
My friend, I think we could go on talking for hours and hours. I mean, let's just move in here for tonight. I mean, do you have anything planned?
This is as always.
This is as always. I mean, one nail appointment is never enough. Okay, so we have a little segment called Share the Biscuits, because, like, you know, tea and biscuits.
Yes.
But I felt like I've been so privileged to sit here and be able to pick your brain and ask you everything. And thank you for sharing just so openly and vulnerably with me. It's so powerful and it means the world to me. But now you get to ask me something, if you would like. If you would like.
So I always love, and you know this about me, I always love encouraging women to celebrate themselves.
Yes, you do.
And encouraging men to celebrate themselves. What's quite interesting is I've been coaching mainly women for quite some time now, and all of a sudden men are popping up. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, they really are popping up in vulnerable ways, wanting support, and it's so beautiful. So there's definitely a shift that's happening in the world at the moment. And so I think I would love you to share something that you're really proud of, and maybe it can be in the way of relationship. You know, something you're proud of in terms of how you show up in your relationship with your partner.
That is a beautiful question. I'm really fucking proud of our relationship. And I hold it very near and dear to me. And I'm so proud of both of us and how we both show up. But I love putting in the work. I love knowing that I have something so valuable and so treasured that I am willing to put in any amount of hard work to make it work. I love getting into the nitty-gritty, and I love that we are not perfect. You know, I love that Gail and I argue, but I love how we argue. Like, I love that we've really always gone about it in a very constructive way. We've always made sure that we've both come out better people after an argument. I love how we're navigating, parenthood. And I love that I am becoming more and more comfortable with like owning up to my bullshit. And just being like, this annoys you, gal, I'm really sorry. Or like, this annoys you, and either, sorry, my love, you're stuck with this for the rest of your life, or 7 lifetimes, which is, we were married in the way, so for 7 lifetimes. Or actually, yes, I can look into myself and I can make the commitment or the promise to you to try and change and try and shift things. I love getting older and just like knowing myself so well that I can bring that honesty and that vulnerability and that truth to our relationship. Like, I'm really proud of that. And I know that that's making us stronger each and every day. And I've always been. I'm very proud of and I think Gail's allowed me also. He's given me the space to be this way, but always being take it or leave it. And knowing what I want, I'm very decisive, to the point that probably drives Gail a bit crazy, because he's like, oh, if that's not that color, she's probably not going to be happy with it.
Can I tell you something? I think that's a gift. I think that you're giving him a gift.
It is a gift. Maybe it's a gift.
Yeah, because I think that men have this beautiful capacity to serve and to hold, for their loves.
Yeah.
And so many women are indecisive and too scared to tell their truths, right? And by giving him the gift of going, this is me, I'm here, this is what I need, this is what I want, he's got some direction.
Completely.
Whereas if you were like, oh no, whatever you want, baby, the poor dude, man, he would be flying in every different direction, trying to please you, trying so hard to please you.
And he does work very hard to please me, but it's like, it is because like, I don't want to waste our time.
Because time is precious.
Time is precious, and we're committed to this. I already know that. And I also know, as much as I love this human with every fiber in me, that like, should we ever come to the point where we need to walk our separate ways, that is also okay. And we will hold each other in that space. I never have that fear. And I think a lot of that beating around the bush and trying to be what the other person, or what you think the other person wants you to be, is fear.
Yes.
That they're going to leave and they're going to walk away. And I think the biggest thing with us is that we really love each other as the human beings that we are. Like, outside of our relationship, like, I can look at Gail and be like, I love and respect you as the human that you are. And that's always just like kept things so centered and so grounded in our relationship, because when things get tough, you can almost take that step back and be like, okay, I'm looking at you as just a person.
Yes.
Not just my man or my lover or my husband or whatever.
But the human being that's standing in front of me.
Exactly. With your own shit and your own dreams and goals, it's not always about us. It's like, and I want the best for you, and I want the best for us. But I know that I need to cultivate the best for you first in order for us to have the best for us.
So I love that you brought up the fact that you fight in a constructive way, because I think that that's possibly one of the biggest reasons why relationships fail, is they don't know how to fight. Right? And if you don't know how to, because everybody's going to fight, right?
Exactly.
You're not going to agree on everything. But if you can learn to fight in a way that is constructive rather than destructive, I mean, you're way ahead of the pack.
Yeah.
Maybe you should give a little chatting over chai about how to fight in a relationship that's constructive. I'm serious. I think that would be so helpful. Really, because I think so few people know how to do it.
I don't even know. It comes down to having that respect.
But I think if you thought about it, there would be certain things that you could think about, that you could transfer. So like with imago therapy, they've created like a structure.
Exactly.
Right? in which to do it.
Or things to
There
be
must
mindful
be-
about.
Exactly. So for
Yeah.
you, there must be things that you are mindful about, that you've set up boundaries for yourself,
Definitely.
right? And for each other within your relationship that allow you to navigate those difficult spaces together.
Yeah. Completely.
So that's my last invitation to you
Well,
today.
thank you very much. And you are such a light in this world, Susana.
And you, my darling friend.
And I'm so glad that our paths have crossed
Yes, me too.
in this lifetime.
Yeah, lucky us.
Lucky us. And thank you for giving us your time today.
Oh, such a pleasure. I hope that
and sharing your
it
heart
helps.
with
Yeah,
us today.
Such a pleasure.
Powerful. Really, really powerful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
love you.
Thank you, and you too. And everyone that's watching, like, just remember that you are the light that you wish to see in this world. And I know that that is a cliche, but cliches are cliches because they're true.
Exactly. I love that.
It's really true.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you.
So much love. Thank you.
Wow, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to that episode as much as I did. I just love diving deep into these conversations with incredible women. If this podcast meant something to you, then you can do two things for us. You can please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This is really the best way to help support the podcast and help us to grow. And secondly, you can go and follow us on Instagram at Chat and Chai. We really do share some incredible content on there that really adds value to your life, I hope. And we love engaging with our Chat and Chai tribe. So give us a follow and let's connect over Instagram. Much love from my heart to yours. Until our next Chat and Chai.